Hello and welcome to Steam Powered PD. Today is Tuesday, April 14th. My name is Kern Kelly, and today's topic we are going to be covering is going to be on Google Forms. Now, we have covered Google Forms previously, but we're going to do a little bit more advanced. I've had some requests and some emails about Google Forms, some questions, and so we're going to start again from zero, kind of work our way, from zero, from not knowing anything about it, how to use those tools, all the way to be able to use that to collect data from students. And so we'll use Google Forms today, kind of an advanced version. I'm actually going to go through a project that one of a teacher asked me specifically for, and how we manage that. And in the creation of that project, that should help explain how Google Forms works and how you can add it with students and how you can collect information and kind of go back and forth from there. So before we do that, we'll look at some of the questions that we've had from the last couple of days. One question came in about inviting guardians to Google Classroom. So if your account in Google Classroom and you're not able to invite a guardian, if it doesn't appear there, email us. I know a couple people kind of slipped through the cracks and they weren't in the list. That should be able to do that. And so I think we've covered everybody, but if you can't, what will happen is in Google Classroom, you'll see a link that will say invite guardians. If you don't see that, that's what's going on. And so just let us know, let tech know, or myself know, and we can certainly take care of that going forward. Just a reminder, I think most people have done this at this point, but just a reminder, if you haven't, please share your Google Classroom classes with the account called classroom@rsu19.net if you're in the rsu19.net domain. And the reason why is basically because if that way, what will happen is we will be able to have access to it if we need to. I already had one teacher who lost power last weekend, wanted to make a change, so they weren't able to get into their Google Classroom, and so they notified somebody and they emailed us. We were able to go in, make the change without a big deal, and let it go through. So that's really the purpose of that. So if you haven't done that already, please share your classroom, your Google Classroom, with classroom@rsu19.net, and that will take care of that. Another question that came up, or another thought that came up from myself this weekend when we talked about, some teachers were looking to access their information through their phones or through a mobile device. It may be worth you installing the mobile apps versions of these tools before you lose internet. So for example, if you have Google Slides or Google Docs or Google Drive, all those apps you can download and install on your mobile device, on your phone. And the reason why, you may not use them right now, but if you later on, if you did lose internet access and you wanted to be able to easily make a change or something like that, they'd already be on your device, ready to go. It would use less bandwidth for them to be able to connect to your online with your data plan, rather than using the Wi-Fi to be able to make a change. Now, they're not one-to-one, and what I mean by that is not everything that you can do online on a laptop or a Chromebook you can do exactly the same on your phone, but a lot of things are the same. So it's worth having those, I think, ahead of time on your phone when you have internet access. In case it goes away, you'd still be able to access that and use it. So that was just a tip that I thought of this weekend as more and more people lost power, and hopefully we have it back now at this point. So let's see, questions looking forward. I think that's pretty good. Oh yeah, the last one I was going to share, I meant to share this yesterday and I missed it for some reason. So the extra credit link yesterday there's a website called Down Detector. So downdetector.com. And what that does is, if you're looking at a service, looking for a website or something like, well, is this down just for me or is this down for everybody? That website will give you go to that website and it'll say, okay, what about, google.com, is that down for everybody or down for me? It will tell you basically, what the consensus is across the board. So I've used that a couple times when I wasn't sure if it was just from my end or from their end. Sometimes it can be in your end, but this way, that's basically downdetector.com will allow you to look at websites across the board. So it's just a super handy tool to have in your tool belt. All right. Today, we're going to talk about Google Forms. So like I said, we already had done that. We started with it, I think, last week or the week before, kind of an intro version. So we're going to take it. I am going to start from zero again because we're going to build a specific tool. I'm going to show you the steps on how you would do that. So step number one is what is the problem? So I had a teacher email me, and they said they wanted to do a quiz that was timed. So the students would have 15 minutes to be able to do this quiz and then, be done. So there's two different ways of doing that. One option is you could accept responses at a certain time. So let's say, for example, you told all your students, okay, at 10 o'clock, I'm going to open the quiz, the Google form. You can use it. And at 10:15, I'm going to stop accepting responses. So you have to make sure you're done before that point. That's one option. And you have the tools to do that right now. I'll show you how to do that. It's just basically a click that you can turn on and off. The only drawback of that, of course, is kids have to be on at that time. So that's okay if they're in your classroom because you're looking at them. But if they're online at home, there might be other things that you can't control or they can't control that may be problematic with that. So the alternative to that is what we came up with as a solution, where you are able to turn it on, or have, when the student starts the quiz, basically it goes for 15 minutes from that point, and then done. When they click submit, it'll be done. Now, I'll show you how we're going to do that. The only thing to note is there's no way that I know of to kick them out of that quiz. And what I mean by that is it actually, stops working after 15 minutes or whatever time you set. How it would work is basically you go for 15 minutes, and if they don't click submit before then, it will indicate to you, okay, this took them this long to do. So I'll show you those steps and how that process works. So step one was I just went to my Google Drive. And so in my Google Drive, I'm going to click new. And in this case, I'm going to do spreadsheets first. So if I go to spreadsheets, here it is. As I mentioned, they're kind of connected to forms. I'm going to click tools and create a form. And here's the form that automatically is created from that spreadsheet. We renamed it to start time. And my first question is going to be to collect their email address. So here's their email address. Like, as I mentioned, it will ask me, do I want to enable email collecting? And the answer is yes. What that means now is if somebody looks at this, I'm just going to show you what it looks like. It automatically collects their email address without you having to have them type it in. This works great for students because that way one, you're going to get their email address so you know who it is, and two, they don't have to type anything. It just automatically collects it. This doesn't work if you're going to ask questions of people outside your domain. So if I wanted to open this up, let me leave this one, to people not inside RSU 19, I would uncheck this one right here, which says collect email addresses. And now it's still asking for an email address, but anybody could add it. If you look at it now to see what it looks like, here's an email address. The other thing too is because it says email address, I can't just type in anything here. It will make sure it's a valid email address. So it looks like, like kern@rsu19.net or something like that. So it has to make sense as an email address. Okay, so this is really crucial. Usually 90% of the time, if you're doing things for a class, in your classroom, in your school, I would recommend going up to the gear up here on the upper right, collect email addresses and restrict it to RSU 19. So that's what I would typically do. I'm actually going to undo that right now because we do have members, people watching this right now that aren't in our district, so I want them to be able to use it as well. The only reason why that would make a difference inside the domain is for students having to type their own email address or not. In this case, they would have to type it in. That looks all good. That looks good. Cool. Presentation. Do I want them to link to another response? And the answer is no. I don't want them to do the same one again, but we are going to put another link in here in a minute. I'm going to explain to you what that is. This confirmation message is that message you get once you've hit submit. So when you click submit, a little message comes and say, hey, thank you for recording your message, or whatever it is, whatever, let's say it says by default, your response has been recorded. We're going to put a custom one in there in a second. And then finally, quizzes. We're not going to make this first form a quiz, but we are going to make the next one. What this first form is doing right now is if I open it up, okay, I'm going to put my email address in here. There it is. And click submit. All it did was set the start time. So by default, when you create a form and somebody puts an entry in there, it goes into the spreadsheet back over here. Let me move it up a little bit so I can see it a little better. Make sure you guys can see the bottom there. Yeah, you can't. Okay, hang on one second. I'm just going to resize this so you can make sure you see that, everything. There we go. Okay, so when you submitted that information, I went to the quiz, I looked at it, I clicked the eyeball to preview it. I typed in my email address, I hit submit. What's going to happen back in the spreadsheet view is right here in that form responses 1. Notice how it asks for, here's my email address. This is the extra one that we added. I can delete that one. So here's the email address, and here is the timestamp. So it automatically puts their start time in by default. This is what we're going to use to time from 15 minutes from that marker right there. One other tip. This is called form responses 1, and that's okay. But there's 2 problems with that. When I reference that tab, this information, Because there are spaces in here, form responses 1, I have to be more careful of how I call it. It's much easier if you call it a shorter name without any spaces. So I'm going to call this tab or this sheet start time. So now I can reference this start time tab just like that. So this is the starting time of my students as they start their quizzes. Now, this form, edit form, is connected to this sheet right here. So I'm going to do one more just to show you what that looks like. Let's say this is shut off here. Form, go to live form. Here it is. They're going to type their email address in. I'll put that other student I've got. So I've got student19 at RSU19. Okay, so there's another student. They're going to click submit, and they're done. Cool. And you'll notice it'll appear right here. All right. One cool thing about Sheets is you can have multiple forms enter information to the same spreadsheet. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to go back to my sheet 1 right here. I'm going to go to form, edit form. Whoops, that's the wrong one. I want to click a new tab here. There we go. Tools, create a form. Okay, so now if I jump back for a second to the sheet, you'll notice here I've got my start time one, and I've got a new form responses 2. So I now have 2 forms. One goes to this tab, and one goes to this tab. Okay, this one I'm going to call my quiz. This is going to be the questions that I ask my students. This is the quiz it's going to ask them. So again, I want to make sure that I request their email address. And again, you'll see this little thing will pop up. Yep, I want to request that. So automatically, I'm not going to make it so again, RSU19 students only can join this. I'm going to make it for everybody. So now anybody's going to collect their email address. It is also, I go to presentation. We don't want to click a link to show another response. If I click up here on quizzes, this one I am going to make a quiz. Okay, we talked about making quizzes. So if I turn that on, let's go down the options here. 1, locked mode on Chromebooks. I would not use this right now when people are home. I don't think it would be worth it because again, yes, you're locking that Chromebook on for that quiz during that time, but it's not really stopping. If somebody really wanted to cheat really badly, they could just have a device beside them. In a classroom, if you want to lock it down so that they're taking a quiz only during your class time when you're looking at them, that would be fine, but I wouldn't use that for right now. Release grade, immediately after submission or later after manual review. Do you want them to receive the results immediately or later? Again, that's 100% up to you. We'll say later for right now. We'll just show you what that looks like. Can they see when they miss a question? As they're going through and answering the question, do they see when they miss a question? Yes or no? Do they see which correct answers are? Yes or no? Do they see the point values? Yes or no? I'm going to leave those on to show you what they look like, but that's up to you whether or not you want them to immediately see that. One thing I mentioned before, what I really like about this is when they miss a question, you can actually have them in the results show, okay, you missed number 2, you put B, but they actually answer C, and here's a link to help you learn more about that. So they can get immediate feedback and go directly to the information that you want them to see on that question. So that's a really handy way to kind of reinforce that learning immediately. I'm going to click Save here. All right, now I'm going to start asking some questions. In this case, the first thing I'm actually going to add, because as I mentioned, this is a 15-minute limit here. We're going to set this to 15 minutes. I'm actually going to put a little timer up in the top here. So if I go to YouTube and search for 15-minute timers, or any variation, I could say 5-minute timer, 10-minute timer, an hour timer. You'll most likely find one online. You can make your own, but I would be surprised if you don't find one. So here's one, the first one that popped up. I'm going to click on that, and I'll see it right here. Now understand, this isn't going to affect them taking their quiz at all. All this does, let me make it, here we go. All this does is just gives them a timer built right into it, so they don't have to wonder, well, if I've been 10 minutes, if I've been 5 minutes, whatever it is. This just gives them that built right into it for the students. So I found this 15-minute timer right on YouTube. I'm going to copy that link to that video, jump back to my quiz. I don't have any questions in here yet. We talked about different types of questions, and we'll do some different types of questions over here on the right. But if I go down and scroll down, one of these options is add a video. Add a video. I could search for 15-minute timer right here, or I could just go get the URL directly, which I have. There it is. I'm going to select that one, and we're going to add that video. Now, there's a handful of options, not very many. I can center align it. That's cool. Click play. I'm just going to give this information for the students. Click play to remind you how much time is left. Okay, so that's just for the students. So just they'd have that as a timer if they want it or not. Cool. Now let's add actual questions. So over on the right side here, I'm going to click the little circle, the plus inside of it. I'm just going to do 5 questions. Question 1. We want to make it a multiple choice, and the reason why is so the answer is A, B, C, or D. So here's my choices here. Now we talked about different types of questions, but so in a quiz, I can add different questions here. My options are multiple choice, checkboxes, drop down, and so forth. Short answer works. The problem with short answer is you have to match it exactly. So for example, if I said the short answer was what's the capital of Maine, and you put in Augusta, but you misspelled it, it's not going to count. Or if you put a capital A versus a lowercase a, it's not going to count. You have to have every variation of that. So I'd just be mindful if I use short answer. For question 1, if I put these choices here, that looks good. I can also add an image if I wanted to. So let's say I want to add a picture in there for each of those choices. If I had younger students, that might be better to do it. I also want to make it required right here. So that makes it, I have to choose something in this answer here. So let's go to the answer key right here. So I'm going to say this one is B. That's the right answer. Here's my points. Each one of these are going to be worth 20 points. And again, you can adjust that if you want to. Do I want to add answer feedback? And this is what I mentioned earlier. If they have a correct answer, maybe I say, nice job. If they have incorrect answer, maybe I say, try again. Or even better would be if I actually had the link to the correct response. Let's say we're studying a certain topic and I really want them to know this and they got one wrong. It could link right directly to your content, your resources to say, oh yeah, here's directly that references that question. So I'd put the link in here and then I put the text that I want to see. And I could have multiples here, but I think that's a really handy tool to add into that. All right, so there's my feedback. There's my question. There's my answers. You can have multiple answers. What that means is if let's say you have 4 options, but a student could choose B or C, or maybe they could choose all of them, or whatever variation you have, you can choose how you want to do that. Okay, click done. So there's my first question. Again, not very interesting question, just question 1, A, B, C, or D. I can copy this entire question like this. So we'll do question 2. And the reason why I copied it is I already have some of these things in here. For example, the answer key is already on B. I'm going to do this one to C instead. Still 20 points. I already have my feedback. I don't have to rewrite all that each time. It's already there. I've got question 2. The add other is interesting. If I click add other, the good and bad about that is it's an open-ended text box. The problem with that is if you're looking for a specific question, you wouldn't be able to pre-score that, right? Because it would just be open-ended. So probably with multiple choice in this situation, I wouldn't use add other. Yeah, so we've got question 2. Let's do another question. We'll do this one as a short answer. I'll just show you what that looks like. So the question is, what is the, oops, I could spell, capital of Maine. I'm going to require this one. Here's my answer key. Add the correct answer is going to be Augusta. Notice here I could add multiple correct answers. So let's say I put in A-U-G-S-T-U-A or something like that. If I put a misspelling in there, thinking that, what, I would accept that. If I received a student that typed it in that way, obviously they're not spelling it correctly, but I know what they're trying to say. That's where it gets a little bit, tricky because you could have every variation in there. So something to think about. Do I want to just mark everything else as incorrect? That's not those 2 things. We'll just leave it at that. And then I'll say that's 20 points as well. Okay, we're going to do, let's do another question here, question 3. And we'll just say A. One thing I like here is, as I mentioned, with these, these will kind of auto-populate for you if you want. Answer key, this one's going to be A is the right answer. Again, these are all 20 points. I think that's 3. So we'll do 2 more, require them. 1 more here. Question 4 and question 5. All right, so I have 5 questions, all multiple choice, except for this one's a short answer that only accepts 1 right answer here. I'm gonna have my 15-minute timer. This all looks great. I'm all ready to go. One thing I would put in here is I would say up in the form description to remind the students that are working on this that their timer has already started, right? So they are starting. As soon as they start the other one, as soon as they receive this, they're ready to go. So I would say the timer has started, just in case they're not sure. And that just gives me a little text at the top. If I want to add additional text, I can click down the very bottom. I can add a text title and description. So let's see where that went. That would actually, it moved up here. Yeah, it's up above. So if I want to move items on top of each other, these little dots right here in the middle, I can drag those around. So I'm going to drag this one down to the very bottom. Keep going here if it lets me. I'll do 1 more. Okay, so I'm going to say this one, the time stops once you click submit. Okay, so right below here, you'll see a submit button in a second. Again, notice this was just a text box, meaning there's no questions with it. It's just text that I can enter in here. Okay, let's look to see what this looks like. If I click the eyeball here to preview this quiz, timer's already started. Here's where I'm going to enter my email address. Again, if I wanted to automatically have it collect, that way they don't have to spend time typing their email address, that works great. This will play right here. I'll just mute that. So this is a timer. Again, it doesn't affect anything. It's just to show them about how much time they have. So as they're working down through it, they're like, oh, how much time do I have? They can just scroll up here and see, oh yeah, I've got 14 minutes left. I've got plenty of time. They can answer their questions. They can go through, enter different things. I don't remember which of these, so I'm sure I'm going to get some of these wrong. I'll just put A, B, C. And so once they're done, once they look through, they like these, they click submit. Whoops, I didn't put in a valid email. There we go. That's right there. That's a good reason to have it so it automatically collects that as well. Scroll all the way down again and click submit. And my response has been recorded. Excellent. Okay. One more step. I want to take this view right here. This is the view that people are going to receive. And again, that eyeball up here basically is preview mode. So that's what everybody's going to see right here. So I'm going to copy that link right here, and I'm going to use it back over here. Now remember, this was the sheet of the tab where we collect the start times. This one's going to be the actual quiz. Now I'm renaming this just so it's easy to reference. So this is the quiz where these quiz results go, and this was the start time right here. If I go to, in the start time tab, if I go to form and edit the form, remember when we had this, look at my gear here, the presentation where we had the confirmation message, your time has begun. Please click the following link. Okay, so what I did is once they click submit in this first form, it's going to open up this confirmation message. It says your time has begun. Please click the following link. This link right here, which is the link from the next form, automatically brings them to that. And they can click on it and directly start their quiz. Let's look at let's go through the whole process and see what it looks like. And if you look back on here, this is their start time. This is their end time. I have an extra question here. I'm not sure why. I'm going to delete that question. We don't want that. I'm not sure where that came from. But here's my timestamp. Here's my email address. Here's my score. Question 1, question 2, and all these questions. Now you notice too, because we made it a quiz, it automatically puts the scores in there for us. Okay. So let's go through this process. Get rid of this one to show you. Okay. This is the link that I would give students. I'm going to go to form, go to live form. This is the link right here. Okay, guys, here we go. You're going to put in their address. And again, their timer hasn't started yet. When they click submit, now their time has begun. Please click the following link. This link will bring them directly to the quiz. You're going to put their email address in again, and now they have the 15 minutes to start their quiz. So I'm going to go down through here, choose some answers. Again, I don't remember which ones I did here. We're going to put the wrong answer in here. We'll put Concord to see what it looks like if it's the wrong answer. A, B, C. Again, because these are all required, if I did try to click submit, it's going to say, hey, don't forget, you didn't answer this question. I can answer that now. And now once I'm done, I'm going to click submit. Okay, let's go back and look at what happened. So we've got, this is the results right here from the start time. So this student started at this time, their email address. This is the quiz that they just took. So they went, here's the quiz time that they took. Here's their email address, here's their score, and here are their results. We're going to make, I'm going to call this one results. We're going to make this sheet right here, basically, get rid of this. It's basically going to compare both of that piece of information. It's going to bring both of those things together. So it will automatically show us how long did it take for that student to take that quiz. And if it's over 15 minutes, we'll know it. Okay? And this is where we get kind of into the advanced version of this. That stuff so far is pretty much a lot of copy and pasting. But this is where we start getting a little bit more advanced. So a couple things I like to do in spreadsheets, and this is really cosmetic, but it helps when you start looking at things. We have this grid view right now, which is okay, but I'm going to get rid of the grid view. So I'm going to click View, Grid Lines, and you know what it looks like blank now. And I'm going to take the first, let's say the first 3 rows here. I'm highlighting them over on the left side. I'm going to make them be a little light blue. Okay, that looks good. And now everything beyond that, now how I'm going to select everything is I'm actually going to click this little in the upper left here. Now, we know if we go click on columns, I can click on a column to go vertically, or a row over here on the left side, the number to go horizontally. If I click this little empty square, it actually selects everything. And I'm going to make it be gray and white so I can see content a little bit easier. We click on the paint bucket here and do what's called alternating colors. It's kind of like conditional formatting. What that means is it will change automatically for us. So alternating colors. These are the different options I have. I'm going to undo the header, and I'm going to choose that light gray back and forth. So if I click on that light gray, I have different choices here for different colors, but I'm going to choose the light gray. Click done. All right, whoops, my other blue went away. So I'm going to do that blue again. That should overwrite. Okay, so I've got my header up here, and I've got my information down here. The other thing is on the left side here, I'm going to grab this bar, and what this does is it freezes something. So if I call this one, for example, this row is going to be the email address, and this row is going to be the start time, and this one's going to be the end time, the duration, their score, and then I'll put in the questions, and I'll show you how I can do that easier. So here, this is going to be that's going to compare this tab and this information to this next one. Now, the reason why we use this info here. The reason why we use this this frozen bar here that kind of freezes it is as I scroll down, you'll see that stays up at the top, which is what I want the whole time. Okay, all right, I'm just going to center this, choose that whole row, bold it, center, just so it's a little bit nicer to look at and easy to work with. Okay, so now we're going to start with our email information. So this gets into the formula part. Now, there's no expectation that somebody's going to memorize all these formulas as we give them. However, this document, when I'm done, I will put this as a link in the show notes. So you'll be able to make your own copy to kind of look at the formulas if you want to use some of these tools. What a formula or function is, it's something like sum. If you wanted to add up all the columns in one row, anytime you use spreadsheets, that's the kind of stuff you're doing, data manipulation. And so if you wanted to add them up, or if you wanted to sort or compare or any of this kind of stuff, this is what you'd use to do that. So the first thing we're going to say is I'm going to reference the information from the start time right here. So I want to pull this start time right here. So I'm going to start with the email addresses. So I'm going to click up on here, equal unique. Okay, so unique means one of each. Now I'm going to pick a range. Now my range is going to be from the start time from here, we'll say to here for right now. Then I'll hit enter. All right, so So let's look at this. Now you can see the formula up at the top here. Equals unique. Unique means that if I have multiple addresses on here, let's say I had, I'm going to enter one more on here just so you can kind of see what it looks like. I'm going to go to the eyeball. I'm going to do it this time, except for this time I'm going to do it from K Kelly, so my account. Submit. That looks good. And then I'm going to put my address in there again. I'm just doing this so that we have two pieces of information to work with. It's a little bit hard to work with only one. Okay. So now you'll see in here, I've got myself twice. And this will become useful in a second because you wouldn't want a student to be able to add to start the quiz and then go add their name again so that they can basically reset their time. And I'll show you how to fix that. So instead of having all of the addresses listed, it's only uniquely showing them one at a time. Now here's the other thing it's doing. Let's kind of dissect this. This is your function. In this case, it's showing uniquely one address at a time, one email address. This is that other tab, start time. Now, what that exclamation point does is the exclamation point says it's in a different tab. It's not in the same tab that we're looking at right now. It's in a different one. We want to go from column B, row 2. So if I go look at start time right here, we're going from column B. We're starting at row 2. We don't need to start at row 1 because row 1 is just the name of it. So column B, row 2. Now, in this case, it only goes from B2 to B13. So that would stop after 13 entries. We don't want that. So I'm actually going to get rid of the number 13. And that will just keep going on forever. If I looked at that, if I added a new entry right now, this would just keep going on as long as it would want to. Cool. The other thing we want to do, I'm going to make this a little bit wider so we can see it better. The other thing we want to do is make it so that we're going to actually sort it by alphabetically, just basically to make it a little bit more easier for us later on. So I'm adding a sort function around that. And that means that now if I add a new one, this will sort alphabetically as we go down. So here are our email addresses from all the entries. Now I want to make it so that I can pull in the start time for that email address. Okay. So I'm going to do a new formula. Anytime you enter the equal sign, that's where you're going to start with your formula. So this one's going to be a filter. Now a filter says show everything in one row where the other row matches something. So for example, in this case, under start time, I want to show everything in row A, right here, that equals what's in row B. In this case, I want to use this email address. So I'm going to do equals filter, everything in row A. Now remember, it's not row A from the tab I'm in, it's from this row right here. Everything in there, comma, where this row equals, and I got to go find what it is, equals B2. All right, let's go look at what happened here. Whoops. B4. All right, let's go dissect this. So we're filtering everything from start time from A2 to A, where B2 to B equals my address right here. Now these actually work out. So what that means is I've got my start time right here. I've got two entries over here, and they both are showing right here. Cool. The problem is I only want their first one. So the easiest way to do that is I can just add an index. What the index function does is it says I only want the first entry there. So now you'll see it's only one. It's going to look like a weird number. All that is the format of the address is just done as a number rather than an actual time and date, which is what we want. So there we go. We've got our time and date. Now I only have to do that once. I can now take this weird formula here and I can pull it down to all the entries. So I don't have to redo it every time. So let's just do this really quickly. And I can pull this down just like that. All right, so now I've got the start times for any address that comes in. If I had a new one right here, these start times will appear. Now I'm going to basically do the same thing for the end times. So if I copy this right here. Now the difference with the end time is I'm not going to go to the start time tab. I'm going to go to the quiz. And again, I'm going to make it the format be Format's going to be date and time. All right. There it is. Okay, so two things about this. One, I have zero expectation that people are kind of following along at home and following the steps. Just know this: this template I'm looking at right now, all these formulas, all this information will automatically be available to you on the show notes. So you're just going to click that link and you'll copy all this stuff. You won't have to recreate this. The purpose of this is kind of showing you a little bit more of a deep dive into advanced Google Forms and Sheets, where we've got two different forms coming into the same sheet. One is a quiz. One is just a simple check, yes, I'm here at this time. This results are going to compare those two things. So now I'm basically going to say I want to compare those two pieces of information. So I'm going to say equals D4 minus C4. Now I want to change that. That looks like 0.15. Well, what the heck's that? Well, I'm actually going to go to format and change that into duration. That's one of my choices for the number scheme here. And so that's going to show me, oops, I want to do the other way around. C4 minus D4. There we go. And I'm going to pull that down. Okay. So that shows me my start times and my end times. If I want to have it stick out to show me that, okay, well, what happens if you're over 15 minutes? That's when I'm going to use my conditional formatting right here. So I'm going to click on the paint bucket, go to conditional formatting. If the time, make sure I have the right one. If the value is greater than 15 minutes, then we'll have it go green. And if it's less than, value is less than 15 minutes, then we'll have it go red. And I actually messed those up. We're going to switch those. Greater than. And that one should be less than. Okay. So what we're doing here, let me jump back to show you what's going on here. Okay, so the first thing is I highlighted this entire column here. I'm going up to the paint bucket. This is conditional formatting. And what that is basically is just saying if you want to have it graphically show you something. In this case, if the value is greater than a certain number, and it should be 15 minutes, then it's gonna come up as red. So show you like, okay, this student took longer than 15 minutes for it. If it's less than that, then it'll come up green. These other ones are green because they're zeros right now. I can keep pulling down that that look here. So as more people make entries, these will keep appearing down below. And again, depending on what you do with that information, if you want to just let students know, it won't kick you out at 15 minutes. It will just tell you, hey, by the way, once you have 15 minutes gone, it's time. The last thing I wanted to share with you here is I'm going to put the scores in here so you can kind of see that automatically. I'm going to use the same formula I did over here before where I used the index and the filter. I'm going to throw that in here. The difference in this time, I'm not going to just pull the time. I'm actually going to pull their score from column C to, and I can't remember exactly which column it was. Let's go look over here to quiz. It's column C to column I. Yep, I guessed it right. And that's going to be the same thing. So C to I. Try that again. There we go. And that will pull over your scores as well as your actual questions and actual answers. The last thing you can do here, if you wanted to have the quiz questions, like these aren't very interesting questions right now, but if I wanted to show those and not have to retype them every time, I'm going from the quiz tab from D to I right here. These are the different questions I want. I could, instead of having to retype them right in here, there's one last formula I'll share with you. It's called transpose. So equals TRANSPOSE. And what that will do is that will take information and it will cut it that way. So I'm going to say I want to take that questions, and we're going to go from, what was that, the quiz from C1. I don't remember which one that was. Let's go look over here. From D1 to I1. All right, and that pulls those questions automatically in here so that I don't actually have to go in and rewrite them, or if I make a change to a question, if I come back over here, and we're gonna call this one, the first question was actually favorite color, or whatever it is, that will automatically update it back over here, so I don't have to retype it every time. All right. So that's a good review. Again, I know that was advanced. I know that was pretty high level stuff, but that's okay. The last thing that I'll share with you, I think this is a worthwhile share. Let me jump back to present now. Anytime that you'd like to share something in your Google Docs, as far as you want to make a public share of it to other people that may not necessarily either be in the district, or you just want students to take a copy of that without having to have you share that item each time, this is a great way of doing it. There's actually two different options of doing that. The first thing, so this is this spreadsheet. Let's say I want to share this spreadsheet with other people, but I don't have to share it one by one with everybody. I want them to easily be able to take a copy of it. So I have two really good options. First of all, I need to share it and make it public. So I'm going to click share in the upper right, go to advanced, change it from private right now to change that to public on the web. Now, this doesn't mean that people can edit it. It just means that people can view it. Right here, anyone on the internet can find and view that item. So right now they can see this thing, but they couldn't change anything. But if I want them to be able to make a copy of it, what I would do is I'm going to take this address that's up at the top right here. Notice at the very end, it's a little bit hard to see, but it says /edit, and then a number sign, and then a bunch of different kind of crazy numbers. There's two options. One, everything after the slash, I can change with the word copy. And what that does is that makes this link now like this. Would you like to make a copy of Time Quiz? Somebody could click on that. It would automatically make a copy, like a photocopier, basically, a digital photocopier on their own Google Drive. So they click on that link, make a copy, and that's it. They have their own copy. It's not tied to your copy at all anymore, which is super handy. So this is an easy way to like do virtual handouts for students. Let's say, for example, you had a weekly reading journal, or notes that you want them to follow a certain format. In any document, any digital document, a spreadsheet, slideshow, or a doc that you want them to make copies of really quickly, this is a really easy way to do that. The other option is, after that slash, use this version. So it's after the slash, replace it with the words preview/template. And whoops, I did it the wrong way. It's template/preview. So after the slash, replace it with template/preview. And what that does is that means that somebody can see what it looks like. And right now, this one's not very interesting, but they can actually see the document or slideshow or presentation or whatever it is before they can say, use this template, and that will give them a copy of it. So the question is whether or not you want them to see a version of it to click use template, or they just click on make a copy and they automatically get it. So either one of those works to kind of do virtual handouts. It's a little bit easier to hand out to people. And that works for anything that's shared. It could be a Google Doc, it can be a slideshow, or a presentation. All right. So with that, we're running up to our time. Let me quickly jump back and check our questions here. Looks like, yep, and so I took care of that. We got the quiz on the screen. That looks pretty good. Now let's see if there's any other final show note questions. The last one I left today as our extra credit is I did put the link in for the bit.ly for the Chrome camera. Some people are asking about that. I didn't add it yesterday, so I added it today. So if you do go to today's show notes, at the very end, you'll see the Chrome camera. And that basically working offline if you're not connected to the internet. Screencastify works great. you're connected to the internet, or if you have slow internet connection, you're not able to use that as your video recording tool, you can do that right in Chrome Camera, which is basically built into the browser. When you're done, you have that video, which you can upload to Google Drive, or you can share, or whatever you want to do with that. You have it stored locally. So that is an option. The other thing to note is if you are saving videos, if you have a choice of different file types, my general recommendation would be to save it as an MP4. MP4. So that's usually typically the best version. There are other file types that you can save it as, and there are different reasons for them. Some are better quality, some are, all kinds of different purposes. But generally speaking, if you can do it as an MP4, that's your best option for saving it as one that most people can use. So I think with that, and it looks like other questions are all good. Tomorrow's topic, I did have spreadsheets, but we're not going to do spreadsheets tomorrow. I think we covered that today. I think we're good that way. I might do some add-ons tomorrow for things that we didn't cover today. If you have suggestions, if you have certain things that you would like to cover, let me know. I'm happy to go back and kind of, revisit certain things if you need, or any specific stuff. We are currently having students work on, and myself work on, little bite-sized video tutorials for specific topics. So for example, if you needed to know something like, how do I share a Google Doc? I don't want anything else, I just want that. We're working on little tutorials that are 10, 15, 20 seconds long that just show specific topics on certain things. So if that's something that you're interested in or need help with, absolutely let us know different things that might be helpful, or for your own students. If you wanted to have students know how to be able to, how would you record yourself or record a document and share that with me in Google Classroom? Any of those little pieces, we're going to make a list ourselves, and we have a pretty good idea of things to start with. But if you have something that you'd like suggested, just let us know, throw it in the show notes, and ask that question in the comments at rshu19.info, and we'll certainly add it. So with that, I think that's a great place to stop. As always, please act healthy and stay curious and look out for each other. We will see you all tomorrow. Take care and have a great day.